Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the show where we explore the stories behind the trends shaping our world. So, if you look in your medicine cabinet right now, chances are pretty high you'll find a bottle of Tylenol. Or maybe the generic version, acetaminophen.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty much the standard go-to.
It really is. It's the absolute staple of over-the-counter pain relief. But this incredibly common drug, well, it's right in the spotlight again. There's this huge convergence happening right now.
A convergence.
Yeah, you've got historical memory bubbling up, major new lawsuits focused on developmental risks, and active regulatory reviews looking at dosage safety. It's all kind of boiling over here in 2025.
That convergence is exactly why digging into this is so important now. This isn't just, about a pill you take for a headache. It's really about how public trust gets built over decades, how a company's history shapes the challenges it faces today, and maybe the biggest piece, how incredibly hard it is to talk about complex health risks when information flies around so fast online.
So our mission today is to unpack that whole timeline. We'll start from when the chemical was first introduced, kind of quietly, then look at the crisis that genuinely changed consumer safety across the globe.
Yeah.
Forever.
The tampering crisis, yeah. Still resonates.
Definitely. And then we need to analyze what these current legal fights and regulatory discussions actually mean for you for the health products you use every day. But first, just a quick note for you. Next time, we'll shift from medicine to tragedy, unpacking the Michigan Mormon church shooting and its wider implications. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. To really get why Tylenol is so visible now, we have to understand just how dominant it became. Tylenol is the brand name, right? For acetaminophen.
Or paracetamol, yeah, depending where you are. Same stuff.
How did this one single ingredient end up defining OTC pain relief? It feels like it's just always been there.
Well, it wasn't always there, but its entrance back in the 1950s was very strategic and really successful. Before acetaminophen really took off, aspirin was king.
Right, aspirin was the big one.
Yeah, but aspirin, even though it works well, has downsides. It can irritate your stomach, cause bleeding issues sometimes. And crucially, there were serious safety concerns about using it in kids because of the risk of Ray's syndrome. That was a big deal.
Ah, okay. So Tylenol comes along, launching specifically as an alternative.
Yeah.
It had a ready-made selling point.
Exactly. It offered pain relief, fever reduction, but without that stomach irritation you often get with aspirin or, other NSAIDs like ibuprofen later on.
So gentler on the stomach.
That was the pitch. That non-irritant profile made it really appealing for people with chronic pain who might need to take something regularly, and critically for kids. For fevers in children.
That pediatric angle must have been huge.
It was massive. Pediatricians started recommending it, and the company pushed that angle hard in their marketing. So by the 1970s, it wasn't just one choice. For many people, especially parents, it was the standard choice for mild pain and fever.
Wow. So it just built and built.
It really did. Billions of doses consumed every year. Its effectiveness, combined with this perceived safety, we'll come back to that, created this totally ubiquitous presence we see today. It's just everywhere.
That ubiquity, though, like you said, is a double-edged sword. When something is that common, any problem, any perceived risk just gets amplified instantly.
Magnified hugely.
And this is where the story takes a really sharp turn, because the Tylenol brand isn't just famous for being medicine. It's famous, maybe infamous, for a crisis that totally reshaped consumer products worldwide.
Yeah, you're talking about 1982, Chicago, the Tylenol tampering tragedy.
Exactly.
It's a defining moment, not just for the brand, but for consumer safety, full stop. And the psychological shockwave it sent through the public. You really can't overstate it.
7 people died.
7 people dead after taking extra-strength Tylenol capsules that had been laced with cyanide. And the crucial thing to grasp here, the really terrifying part, was that this wasn't a mistake in the factory.
No, it wasn't a product defect.
It was a deliberate criminal act.
Yeah.
Someone, somewhere, took bottles off store shelves, opened the capsules, put poison in them, and then put them back on the shelves. An external attack.
Just the randomness of it.
Exactly. The idea that a murderer could basically reach through the entire supply chain and poison something you just bought at the corner store, it shattered people's confidence overnight, completely.
The immediate reaction must have been chaos. Panic.
Total panic. Sales plummeted. The brand looked like it was finished. Done.
The way the company, Johnson & Johnson, Tylenol's parent company, responded.
Yeah.
That's what really became the stuff of legend that's studied in business schools, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the textbook case study for crisis management. They didn't hesitate. They didn't try to contain it locally or downplay it.
What did they do specifically?
They immediately issued a massive nationwide recall, not just in Chicago, everywhere. Pulled 31 million bottles of Tylenol capsules off the shelves. 31 million.
Oh my God. The cost.
Must have been astronomical. hundreds of millions of dollars, which was an unbelievable amount of money back then. But doing that sent an absolutely unambiguous message. Consumer safety comes first, period. Above profit, above everything. They put people before the bottom line very publicly.
And that act, born from tragedy, had this huge ripple effect. The regulatory legacy, the protections we still have today.
They came directly from that incident over 4 decades ago, and it led immediately and permanently to tamper-evident packaging standards, not just in the U.S., but worldwide.
So every time you struggle to open a new bottle of pills.
Yeah, think about that foil seal glued tight onto the mouth of the bottle.
Or the plastic ring you have to break on a soda bottle.
Or those tamper-proof strips on makeup or food jars. All of that safety infrastructure, that system we take for granted now, it was basically born directly out of the '82 Tylenol crisis.
It was this incredibly rapid overhaul of packaging safety.
It really was. And it protected consumers. But in this fascinating twist, it also ended up positioning Tylenol, the brand that was the victim of the attack, as the gold standard for corporate integrity during a disaster.
Because they took responsibility for a problem they didn't actually create.
Exactly. They owned the situation, acted decisively, prioritized safety, and the public eventually rewarded that transparency. They came back to the brand. Decades of loyalty followed.
Okay, so that loyalty, built partly on that crisis response, is now being seriously tested again. Fast forward to 2025. Tylenol is suddenly back in the headlines, facing pressure from, like, 2 completely different directions at once.
Right. That decades-long trust is under strain. You've got the legal angle and you've got the regulatory angle, and they often feed into each other.
Let's break those down. The brand's definitely getting renewed scrutiny. Where should we start? The legal side.
Yeah, let's start there. The legal angle today is focused on very specific long-term safety concerns. This is totally separate from the 1982 tampering.
Okay, what's the focus now?
We're seeing this wave of lawsuits, hundreds, maybe thousands of them, alleging a link between using Tylenol during pregnancy and certain developmental disorders in the children later on, specifically autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and ADHD.
Whoa. Okay, that's a heavy claim. These aren't just simple slip-and-fall cases.
Not at all. These are incredibly complex. They involve difficult science, questions about prenatal exposure, and potential consequences that might not show up for years after birth. It's a huge legal and scientific challenge.
What's the core scientific argument the lawsuits are making? What evidence are they pointing to?
The plaintiffs, the families suing, are pointing mainly to epidemiological studies. These are mostly observational studies, meaning they look at large groups of people and try to find correlations, patterns.
Okay.
And some of these studies suggest a correlation, a statistical link between women who reported using acetaminophen frequently or for extended periods during pregnancy, especially maybe in the 2nd and 3rd trimesters, and a higher incidence of their children later being diagnosed with autism or ADHD.
So a correlation. But what's the proposed mechanism? How do they argue the drug could potentially cause this?
The theories vary a bit, but they often revolve around the idea that acetaminophen might act as a mild endocrine disruptor, messing with hormones, or that it could potentially increase neuroinflammation, sort of like inflammation in the developing fetal brain.
But the huge challenge with these kinds of studies, these observational ones, and I know you follow this research closely, is establishing causation. Right. Correlation isn't causation.
That is the absolute crux of the scientific debate. It's incredibly difficult. The issue is what we call confounding variables.
Meaning other factors that could explain the link.
Exactly. Think about it. Why might a pregnant woman be taking Tylenol frequently or for a long time? Maybe she has a serious infection causing a high fever. Maybe she has chronic pain from another condition. So, could it be the underlying illness itself, the fever, the infection, that's actually contributing to the neurodevelopmental outcome, and not the Tylenol she took to treat the symptoms? Separating the drug's effect from the reason the drug was taken is extremely hard in these studies.
So the lawsuits are essentially saying, look, there's enough correlation here, enough smoke, that there should have been clearer warnings about this potential risk.
That's the argument. They're saying the risk, even if not definitively proven, should have been communicated more strongly. Meanwhile, the manufacturers, and actually many major public health bodies like the FDA and equivalents in Europe,
What do they say?
they argue that the evidence for a causal link proving the drug causes these outcomes is still weak and inconclusive. They emphasize that untreated fever or severe pain during pregnancy can also carry risks for both the mother and the fetus.
So it's this classic, complex, scientific debate playing out in a very high-stakes legal arena.
Precisely. Thrust into the legal system where you need definitive answers, which science often doesn't provide easily.
Okay, so while that incredibly complex legal battle unfolds, regulatory agencies like the FDA are focusing on a totally different Tylenol risk, one that's actually much better established, right?
Yeah.
Liver toxicity.
Yes. This isn't new information at all, but the pressure around it seems to be mounting again. Liver toxicity is, the known Achilles heel of acetaminophen.
Why is that?
The drug itself is incredibly safe when you use it exactly as directed. But the problem is it has what we call a narrow therapeutic window.
Narrow therapeutic window. What does that mean in plain English?
It means the difference between a dose that works that relieves your pain or fever and a dose that can cause serious harm, specifically acute liver failure. That difference is surprisingly small, much smaller than for many other common drugs.
Okay, unpack that for us. What actually happens inside the body when someone takes too much? Even if it's just a bit too much over, say, a few days.
Right. So when you take a normal dose, your liver processes the acetaminophen. It metabolizes it into harmless, inactive compounds that your body just gets rid of easily.
Standard detox process.
Yeah. But if you take an overdose, either one big overdose or maybe just taking a bit too much repeatedly over several days, what we call a cumulative overdose.
Or maybe if your liver's already stressed.
Yeah.
Like from drinking alcohol.
Exactly. Alcohol use significantly increases the risk. When the liver's processing capacity gets overwhelmed, it starts producing a different byproduct, a toxic metabolite. Its chemical name is NAPQI and acetyl P-benzoquinone imine.
NAPQI.
Okay.
Normally, your liver has a natural detoxifier called glutathione. Glutathione jumps on that NAPQI immediately and neutralizes it. No problem.
But if there's too much NAPQI,
Then your liver's glutathione supply runs out. It gets depleted. And once the glutathione is gone, the NAPQI starts attacking the liver cells directly, binding to them, destroying them.
and that's what leads to liver failure.
That's what leads to acute liver failure. It can happen frighteningly fast, and it's incredibly serious, often requires an emergency liver transplant, and it can be fatal.
And part of the danger is that people take too much accidentally. That's a huge part of it. Because acetaminophen isn't just in Tylenol. It's a hidden ingredient in so many other products.
Like what?
Cold and flu remedies, sinus medications, sleep aids, even some prescription painkillers like Percocet or Vicodin contain acetaminophen.
So you could take Tylenol for a headache and then later take a nighttime cold medicine.
And without even realizing it, you've accidentally doubled your dose of acetaminophen. People might end up taking 5,000, 6,000 milligrams or more in a single day without knowing the danger, well exceeding the safe limit.
So the regulatory discussion now in 2025 isn't really questioning if the drug can be dangerous at high doses that's known. It's more about how to prevent these accidental overdoses, which are statistically the much more common danger associated with it.
Exactly. It's about risk mitigation for a known hazard. Are we seeing specific proposals from the FDA or other health bodies beyond just telling people to read the label carefully?
Yes, the thinking has evolved. Historically, the maximum recommended daily dose was 4,000 milligrams. But because of concerns about widespread misuse and accidental overdoses, some manufacturers, including the makers of Tylenol, have already voluntarily lowered the maximum daily dose listed on their extra-strength products, down to 3,000 milligrams.
Okay, so they're trying to build in a bigger safety margin.
Right. And the FDA continues to review this. They're looking at whether even lower limits should be mandated across all acetaminophen products, or maybe requiring different packaging, like unit dose blister packs instead of big bottles.
Like they have in the UK, for example. They limit pack sizes you can buy over the counter.
Exactly. Similar measures. The challenge here is finding the right balance. You want to maintain access because the drug is cheap, effective, and needed. But its very commonness, its availability, makes it inherently risky if people aren't careful.
It's a tough balancing act.
So, if we try to connect these dots, why do these things seem to happen together? You've got these huge lawsuits about pregnancy risks hitting the headlines, and at the same time, regulators are revisiting the known liver toxicity issue. It feels like a perfect storm of scrutiny right now in 2025.
It really does feel like that. And I think it's partly a feedback loop driven by visibility.
How so?
Well, when these high-profile lawsuits get filed, especially ones alleging harm to children, they generate massive media coverage, headlines everywhere.
Sure.
That intense public attention does two things. First, it makes the public more aware, maybe more anxious. But second, it signals to the regulators who might already be tracking things like liver injury reports quietly in the background that this brand is now very much in the public square. There's a focus on it.
And that public focus encourages regulators to act more quickly or decisively on issues they were already considering.
It can, yeah. It adds sense of urgency. Plus, all this heightened visibility often gets amplified by cultural stuff, the resurfacing of the memory of the 1982 crisis.
It's amazing how that event, the tampering, still casts such a long shadow, decades later, even though, as you said, the company handled it well and arguably came out looking responsible.
Absolutely. That memory lingers. It haunts the brand in a way. And part of the reason it sticks around is because the crime itself was never solved.
Oh, right. They never caught who did it.
Never. So it remains this kind of open-ended mystery, a perfect hook for storytelling. And you see it pop up constantly.
Where does it resurface?
True crime podcasts love it. They go into the details of the poisonings. Documentaries get made about the case, about how it led to tamper-evident packaging. You see discussions on places like Reddit or YouTube, people speculating, sharing what-if scenarios.
So it's kept alive in popular culture.
Exactly. And all that chatter acts as this kind of permanent, maybe subconscious reminder for consumers. Even the most familiar, trusted products aren't immune to risk. There's always a potential vulnerability.
And that underlying historical skepticism, that memory of vulnerability, it must feed directly into how people react to new concerns today, especially on social media.
Oh, completely. Social media acts like an accelerant. A new scientific study comes out, maybe suggesting a possible risk, maybe even a very tentative one, or even just news about a new legal filing.
And boom, it explodes.
Instantly. It triggers these incredibly rapid cycles of panic and then sometimes reassurance, spreading across millions of feeds in hours.
That speed and the lack of nuance you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
that seems like the core problem.
It really is. Social media algorithms, especially platforms designed for short, punchy content, they don't really reward careful, contextualized information. They reward strong emotion, controversy, fear.
So you take a complex scientific paper, maybe an epidemiological study like the ones in the lawsuits. It might find only a weak statistical correlation, maybe suggesting a 10% increase in relative risk for some outcome, and the scientists themselves urge extreme caution in interpreting it.
Right. Full of caveats. Needs more research. Don't change practice based on this alone.
But the algorithm doesn't care about caveats.
Not at all. That nuanced, cautious paper gets instantly distilled into like a 15-second TikTok video with a scary soundtrack. Warning! Tylenol linked to autism. Stop taking it now. Or a headline that screams causation when the study only showed correlation.
And that just pours fuel on the fire of the skeptical view.
Exactly. It taps into existing anxieties people might have about big pharma or corporate responsibility. When the public sees headlines about a massive lawsuit, they don't necessarily parse the difference between an allegation and proven fact. For many, the lawsuit itself feels like confirmation of their fears about long-term safety.
So what does it mean when a scientific paper can just bypass the whole traditional process of peer review, debate, consensus building, and go straight to 100 million people on social media? It feels like it short-circuits scientific caution.
It absolutely does. And the result is often these exaggerated panic cycles. People get really confused. Is this a real immediate danger I need to worry about right now? Or is this just part of the normal, ongoing scientific process of investigation, where risks are constantly being evaluated and reevaluated? It becomes very hard to tell the difference.
And that confusion plays out really vividly on platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. They've become major sources of health information for a lot of people, for better or worse.
For better and worse. That's the key duality. You absolutely can find good, genuinely helpful health advice on these platforms. I've seen really clear, useful videos explaining, say, how to properly measure liquid Tylenol for a child to avoid giving the wrong dose. That's important.
Okay, so there's good stuff too.
There is. But alongside that, you get a tidal wave of misinformation. Often simplified, highly emotional narratives designed purely to grab attention and go viral. Fear sells clicks.
And if you look at what specific topics about Tylenol are trending online right now,
they perfectly mirror the current legal and regulatory hotspots we've been talking about. Dosage safety is huge. People sharing scary stories about accidental overdose, warnings about hidden acetaminophen. That liver toxicity risk is a constant theme.
And the pregnancy risk.
Oh, yeah. Safe use during pregnancy is another massive topic, obviously fueled directly by those autism ADHD lawsuits. You see personal anecdotes, unverified claims, fears being shared and amplified at incredible speed.
And then, because there's this cloud of doubt being cast, whether it's about developmental risks or liver damage, you also see a lot of promotion of alternatives, right?
Absolutely. Safer alternatives. This is where you often see commercial interest creeping into the viral health discourse.
What kind of alternative?
Everything from, frankly, bizarre claims about needing to detox acetaminophen from your system using special supplements to promoting various herbal remedies or other pills marketed as being just as effective, but supposedly natural and completely risk-free.
Which often isn't true, right? Natural doesn't automatically mean safe.
Not at all. Many supplements aren't well regulated and can have their own side side effects or interactions. But this promotion taps directly into that desire people have to just avoid the perceived risk of Tylenol altogether, a risk that social media has often inflated way beyond the actual statistically established danger of careful, directed use.
It creates such a noisy, confusing environment for actual public health communication. How do you, the listener, sort through it all? How do you tell the difference between a legitimate warning based on solid evidence and just fear-based clickbait?
It's incredibly challenging, and it leads us straight into the core tension this whole Tylenol story really highlights. That push and pull between public trust in medicine and the demands we place on corporations regarding responsibility, especially now.
So you've got these two opposing views coexisting. On one side, there's what you might call the public health view.
Right, and that view is still very much grounded in the data. It holds that Tylenol, acetaminophen, is fundamentally effective, it's affordable, and it's safe when it's used exactly as directed.
The key phrase being as directed.
Absolutely critical. From this perspective, it's a vital tool. Pain management, fever reduction, it helps millions, maybe billions of people function every day. Its benefits generally outweigh its risks, provided those risks, primarily liver toxicity from overdoses, are managed carefully through proper dosing and awareness.
Okay, that's one side. Then what's the other side?
The other side is that persistent, skeptical view. This view is fueled by things like the ongoing lawsuits about potential long-term harms, like the pregnancy developmental links. And it's definitely colored by that lingering cultural memory of 1982, that sense of potential hidden danger.
And this view sees the brand through a different lens.
Yeah, through a lens of potential, maybe undisclosed, harm. This view often demands absolute certainty about long-term effects, which is, frankly, an almost impossible standard to meet for any medicine, especially one used so widely by so many different people for over 70 years. Science rarely offers that kind of absolute certainty.
The way the company has managed its reputation through all this is fascinating, just thinking about the timescale. That response back in '82 was swift, decisive.
Became the gold standard for crisis management, no question.
It really seemed to foster public trust in their integrity, even though they were responding to a horrifying external attack. They showed responsibility in that moment of acute danger.
They absolutely did. But now, these current legal challenges focusing on alleged internal risks, the long-term effects of the drug itself, they threaten to erode that positive reputation built decades ago.
So it proves that managing corporate responsibility and public trust isn't a one-time thing. You don't just fix it and move on.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process. The public might see it as, okay, the company survived that first crisis, the tampering, which came from outside, but now they face this potentially more insidious challenge rooted in complex science about the drug's own safety profile.
It raises a really important question, doesn't it, about how any company, especially in healthcare, maintains trust when the information landscape shifts so rapidly.
Yeah.
Good actions 40 years ago don't necessarily protect you from new scientific questions today, especially when the legal system gets involved and amplifies everything.
And all that scrutiny, all the headlines about these complex, less certain risks can sometimes obscure the primary, statistically much more common and preventable danger.
Which brings us back to the liver toxicity.
We have to keep reiterating that central safety message that comes through loud and clear from health authorities. The main danger with Tylenol today is misuse or overuse. It's that narrow therapeutic window. It's people not reading the label carefully, taking too much, maybe combining it accidentally with other medicines containing acetaminophen.
It's not that the product itself is inherently flawed in its intended use at the right dose.
Correct. The danger comes primarily from deviating from that intended use.
And that is the absolute nightmare communication challenge for public health officials, isn't it? They need to get across a very nuanced message. This is safe and effective if you follow the directions precisely, but potentially deadly if you don't.
Right. How do you communicate that effectively in a media environment that thrives on simple, black and white, good versus evil narratives?
It's incredibly difficult. A public service announcement saying, carefully check the milligrams on all your medicines. That's rational, important, but boring. It gets ignored.
But a lawsuit alleging a link to a serious developmental condition, or a scary anecdote about liver failure, that gets millions of shares. It's emotional, it validates pre-existing anxieties people have about chemicals, about medicine, about corporate secrecy. The scary story always travels faster and further than the careful, data-driven advice.
So for you, listening to this, navigating it all, it really demands active critical thinking. You have to consciously try to sort through these cycles of alarm and reassurance that wash over the internet.
You do. The complexity of the science involved, like how hard it is to prove causation in those prenatal studies, or understanding the specific metabolic pathways involved in liver toxicity, it means you can't just react to the latest viral soundbite.
You have to look deeper.
You have to try. Look for the underlying data, look for statements from multiple reputable health organizations, understand the difference between correlation and causation, and maybe most fundamentally, go back to basics. Read the directions on the bottle or package. That remains the single most crucial action you can take to manage your own safety with this extremely common drug.
When you step back and look at the whole arc, Tylenol's rise to dominance in the 50s and 60s, that shocking crisis in the 80s that changed everything, and now this really complex legal and regulatory situation in 2025, it illustrates something important, doesn't it?
I think it shows how the past is never really past, especially in the consumer world. History and the present are constantly interacting, shaping trust and perception.
Its ongoing success seems almost inseparable from its struggles, its crises.
It's true. It's a reminder that even the most ubiquitous, trusted products aren't static. They require constant scientific vigilance, ongoing regulatory oversight, and it shows that a company's legacy, even one built on demonstrated integrity in the past, is always vulnerable, especially now with the speed of modern health communication and the power of legal challenges to shape public opinion.
A really complex picture for a seemingly simple pill. Thank you for taking this look at the source material with us. Next time, we'll shift from medicine to tragedy, unpacking the Michigan Mormon church shooting and its wider implications.